Hello people, welcome to another episode of The Other Side. This is a show where we invite guests who share their different Christian life experiences and also how God has been involved in the building of their career. Now today I'm joined by Dr. Rozious Siatwambo. Dr. Rozious, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and good to be here and also to be interviewed by my young brother.
Indeed,
I felt good, when you extended an invitation, and
sure.
I think it's one of its kind, and I'm so humbled. I'm truly humbled to be part and parcel of this journey.
Great. I know you enjoy this show because we have a lot for you as we get down to business and get to learn more about Dr. Rozious Siatwambo. Now, in simple terms, who is Dr. Rozious Siatwambo? Many people might be wondering. Maybe they might have heard you. They might have seen you on TV. Who is Dr. Rozious Siatwambo?
Dr. Rozious Siatwambo is a forecast. I don't know whether I can call myself as a young man, but I'm no longer young because I turned 46 last year.
Wow, 46.
So, 46 last year. So very focused and also visionary, a hard worker, but of course raised in the villages of Choma, Batoka area, where I spent much of my early childhood before I crossed over to the city of Lusaka to join the rest of my family member. But of course raised by the two pastors, Reverend Robert Siatwambo and Melita Michelo, who is now going to be with the Lord. And of course, we are 9 of us as siblings and married and have children. And basically, that's what I can say in a nutshell. And also a businessman. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is Dr. Rozious Siatwambo born again?
Yeah, very much born again. I can say I was raised as a Christian, and I don't know at what point I can't even tell at what point I became born again, because I was born and raised as a Christian.
In a Christian home.
In a Christian home,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. How can you describe the involvement of God from where you started to where you are today? How has God played that huge role, or where do you put God in terms of your journey of faith?
I want to say my journey has been that of miracles, number one. And also number two, there are certain things that I started questioning at some point, which were not normal, they were not usual. And they turned out to, a situation where you start asking questions to say, why are certain things happening like that? And I couldn't find certain answers until later on I found answers in the Lord. And I want to say I have come to learn from certain situations that have happened to my life. Like I want to tell you to say, there's no such a successful person that you find in life who tell you to say, the journey has been all smooth. All right, they say a journey which has been, without obstacles. If one has undertaken such journey, must be worried, because if they hit into a hump one day, then definitely they're going to do what they're going to fall. And I want to say my journey has been that of ups and downs, and there are certain situations that have been true where I saw the hand of the Lord. I saw God at work. And it's what made me begin to, totally and entirely depend upon Him. But of course, I've picked a number of lessons to say there's a reason to anything that happens to someone's life. And I was able to pick a number of lessons on the way. And even the way things were happening. And I want to say, I truly agree with the scriptures to say, to those God has predestined, God has already, there are people that God has already said, okay, you're going to be like that, you're going to lead such a kind of life. And God would take you through a path where God will train you. God will take you through certain situations, so that once you come out of that, definitely you'll be strong. And I want to say, I have seen God in my life. I've seen God at work, even in the businesses. I think those who have heard me talk from time to time, I never leave God in all these businesses. I've seen God from the foundation of each and every business. And within our motto, even in our institutions, we normally say God is the pillar, He's the foundation of these institutions, because we have seen to say, without Him, nothing has really worked out and nothing could work out.
Oh, wow, great.
Yeah.
you're a businessman.
Yeah.
You are also an author of Exams Made Easy book that made a lot of kids. I mean, a lot of kids benefited from it. I was one of the beneficiaries because at the time I was preparing for exam. The time that that book came out. You're also a CEO of Great North Road group of companies. I mean, all these roles that you are able to play. How are you able to balance up? How do you play all these roles? It must be a lot of pressure being able to handle all these institutions as a CEO.
Yeah, over time, I have come to learn that wealth creation is a process, and it takes so many years. I think you are my brother. You know my background, my life, where I'm coming from. To say I started running businesses at a tender age when I was young. And those who know, human development the way it is in such a way that what when you are growing up as a human being, the brain is in two parts. You have what you call the conscious and also the subconscious. So the subconscious normally picks whatever is happening in your life. It records your life. It records what you see, the environment you are living in. So it happens that as you are growing up now, for instance, I grew up in businesses. I started running businesses at a tender age, such that now, as the brain was recording, running a business now became part of me. So it is now my life. And as such, you understand to say in this process, because running a business is part of me, I have made quite a number of discoveries on the way. I've been studying, I've been reading, I've been, understanding myself, understanding the business. And I want to say, based on this, experience that I've had, it has made me now understand to say when you're creating a business, in most cases, people normally rush into creating, a business and not the systems. All right. So I've spent much of my years working on the systems and also the culture, the systems, and also just building the brand, the name, and so forth and so on. Because I understood business from the beginning to say you can't just rush after business, minus putting these things in place. And I want to say now the group of companies has now grown, and I do not have much in terms of pressure. I can say I'm pressured because a successful business is run by systems. It's also run by culture. So we have a culture that we've built over time. We have systems that we've built over time. So in any case, the culture of the business and also systems are bigger than me. So meaning I do not have much pressure when it comes to the businesses. So I'm not needed anywhere, right? Except maybe just being there to mentor people. Not that you see me running up and down unless I want to do it for fun. So in a nutshell, this is what I can say to say, it has taken a lot of work. So building a foundation, laying a foundation takes more work, and it takes so many years.
Wow. So being a learned person, you went to the University of Zambia and you acquired a degree. Most people would choose to go for maybe a white-collar job. What motivated you to start up your own business? What motivated you?
One of the motivations was my background. If you look at the entirety of a human being in terms of growing up, they say your genesis or your childhood becomes your life at some point. So meaning, as you are growing up, there comes a time where, when you are somewhere around 18 years or so, whatever the brain had recorded from the time you were grown up, the environment, what you are thinking, what you've been hearing now becomes part of your belief system. Now, if you look at my journey in life, I have grown up in business at a tender age. So now business now had become part of my life. It had now become part of me. Such that now, because I was so much into business and I was able to make money, so the issue of me getting into employment never arose. So because now I was addicted to running businesses, this is what prompted me to say, okay, let me continue in businesses because this is my life. This has been my life. And if both getting a job and being in employment for self-fulfillment and also for money-making purpose, if I'm able to make money, I've been able to make money, and I have this sense of fulfillment once I am doing a business. Let me just go straight into business.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. So being a Christian as well, how do you divide your time so that you can serve God at the same time? Maybe your work maybe might be demanding, it might require you to travel from one place to another, moving from one town to another. How are you able to maintain that fellowship with God?
This is a very good and important question, and I love the angle from where the question has come in. I'll state this from what I've read from the scriptures in terms of serving God. I base my faith on the first book of the Bible, which is Genesis.
Yeah.
I think many people have never understood the commission that God gave us. So when God was commissioning Adam and Eve, if you look at the first assignment that God gave Adam and Eve was, Adam and Eve, I have left you on this planet Earth. I haven't given you a bed, I haven't given you a mattress, I haven't given you anything. But what I've done is I've given you authority. If you read Genesis chapter 1 verse 28 to say, I have given you the authority. I have blessed you. So blessing simply means he gave Adam and Eve the authority. And using this authority, subdue, rule over the fish, meaning be in charge of the fish, be in charge of anything, whatever is here on planet Earth. So many people don't understand this authority. So the authority that God gave us was the power of the mind. Now I want to take you now to understanding serving God from the Bible point of view. So the whole purpose of God when God created a human being was that a human being must be successful, so that through the success and also with the success that God has given you, you'll be able to serve people. And I think this is where I'll normally say, there's a way we must redefine Christianity, especially here in Africa. It came on the left side because there's been so much that we have said about, I've seen people that demonize success, people that talk ill about success, and to most Christians they normally think to say, when you're poor, that's when you go to heaven. Then you're wasting God's space, because from the beginning God said, I blessed you, subdue, be in charge, rule over this and so on. So in the plan of God, God wanted man to be happy. God wanted man to be successful, because when you're successful, when you're happy, even serving God, it becomes so easy. You understand that, right? So with all the wealth, once you have the wealth and all this, it becomes easy. And if you read the scripture very well in Psalms, the Bible says, God takes pleasure when he sees his children succeeding, meaning the other way around is what? It's not the case of, so God is never happy. And that's why the other time I was telling the other group of people to say, in heaven we normally think that sin is just all about committing adultery. It's all about insulting and so on. So in heaven we'll be judged for not having been the people we were supposed to be. Okay. Because by God's plan and design, God wants every human being to prosper. So meaning God is never happy when he sees his children suffering. And I'm basing my foundation from that. And when I came to understand, the concept of wealth creation, to say God left, the power of wealth creation in our hands. When he commissioned Adam, he said, I haven't given you anything, I bet, but I've given you this power. The power is the mind, meaning using the mind, you'll be able to look at a tree, and from the tree you can say, from this tree I'll be able to extract a chair. So I'm basing from there. And you'll find that now when it comes to serving God, I serve God at that point, at that level. And that's why those who have heard me, speak about God, I normally say, with whatever God has given us, it is all bring it to his glory. All right? When we were laying, for instance, the foundation of the resort, I remember telling people to say, I want people to see the hand of God at work, because I know who God is and I know what God is able to do. And I told the people to say, whatever we're going to build where the resort is now was going to be built based on the scriptures, abiding by these scriptures. When you're talking about abiding by these scriptures in terms of tithing, in terms of giving, there are so many works that we are doing in the background which we have never mentioned. We have helped build churches, we have helped, I think there's so many orphanages and so on. We don't normally put these things on social media, because that's a commitment that we have made before God. And that through this, what God has given us, may people see God in us. I think, to me, that is the greatest evangelism. So the greatest evangelism is when people see you, they must see God. they must praise God with all the substances that God has given you. And I want to say I have a strong relationship with God from that angle. That's how I understand, you know, even in terms of evangelism, to say sometimes you don't need to struggle to tell people who Christ is. When people look at you, they must see Christ. You don't need to struggle to lead people to God. When people see what God is doing in your life, people must even repent. And I've seen it is very easy for me to tell people to say, preach, you know, pray. Because I pray. They know to say he's a prayerful person. So when you talk about the relationship that I have with God, basically I can talk about that angle, from that angle. And I want to say I am a prayerful person. And I love praying around 01 and 0203. Okay. That's the time I normally read the Word of God. So I read the Word of God. Why that
time is it?
Because the time I am never distracted. My mind will be free. My mind will be clear. I don't expect any phone call. I don't expect any trouble from the business.
And
I
from
don't
the
expect
children. Obviously, the children.
Not even anyone.
Yeah.
So when I'm praying around 02, when I'm reading the Bible, it's entirely between me and God. If it means crying, I cry. If it means lying down, I lie down. So that has been my trend all along, from the time I came, you know, to know God deeper. To say, yes, I can worship in public, but you discover that most of this worship that goes on in public, in church, which I do, I lift hands, but there's always that conscious, that element within you to say, oh, how am I dressed? Once in a while, the mind will, you know, you flick here and there, you know, how am I looking? Who is looking at me? You know, and so forth and so on. So there's that distraction. But when I'm praying at night, I cry. When I'm praying at night, I know I can raise my voice, I can cry, I can shout, I can do what, because I know it's only in between me and God. And I've found such prayers to be very effective. So generally, in terms of my Christianity, number one, the strength is based on what I'm giving. We have invested heavily in the kingdom of God, and much of the giving, not what people see on social media. That's not giving. We do a lot of work in the background. I think so many orphanages that we're supporting, a lot of organizations, a lot of churches that we've built, and we don't mention those things.
Wow. Okay.
And also in terms of prayer, I'm a prayer warrior. People may not see me to say I'm praying and so on. And also, you talk about also even just basically generally my conduct. You know, my conduct, my lifestyle, it must preach Christ, so that I don't have problems, you know, when I'm telling people to say pray. I don't have problems when I tell people to say, you know, you must do that. When people see me, people must know to say there is God.
So you've raised something very important as you were explaining. We have a lot of Christians in this country who pray, and Zambia is one of the poorest countries. I feel bad saying this, but it is the truth. Zambia is a third world country, and I can say it's one of the most prayerful countries.
And yet, in terms of wealth creation, we are at the bottom.
We are at the bottom.
Especially Christians, Muslims, Hindus are doing far better than us.
Why do you think it is so? What has placed Zambia there? We pray, yet we are still a poor country, a third world country.
One of them is understanding the gospel right from the beginning. This one I'll be categorical. You forgive me. I'll say it in black and white the way it is.
Say it as it is.
As it is. Yeah. So first and foremost, we need to understand the genesis, the background of the gospel, and you know, our behavior when it comes to Christianity has to do with you know, the history in the way Christianity was introduced to Africa and especially Zambia. In that, you know, the missionaries that brought Christianity had ill motives of wanting to use the gospel to do what? To make sure that, you know, they blindfolded Africans from seeing the truth. Okay? They wanted to blindfold Africans, you know, from seeing reality. So much of it was on, you know, dealing with the minds of Africans, so that, you know, Africans were enslaved. And that's why when they were bringing in this gospel, they made sure that they instilled a bit of some fears to say, if you don't do this, this is what is going to happen. You know, if you don't do this, you know, God, you know, doesn't want, you know, there's this thing which is still common even in churches where people will preach you about even wealth.
What's
they say people who are rich, they will not go to heaven. You know, That's the background where we're coming from. So when you're rich, you not go to heaven. Money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
You know, if you're suffering, it's the will of God. I say, oh my God, which God? God is a good God.
Yeah. No, God is not a poor
God.
God.
A good God. If you read the Bible very well, God does not take pleasure when he sees his children suffering. Not the God I know. He's a compassionate God. He's a good God. So it simply means, or maybe if I can just give a simple example, which father can be happy to see his children suffering?
I don't think there's any.
I think we got the scriptures the other way around.
Yes.
God is never happy to see his children suffering. It's not the will of God for God's children to suffer.
Suffering. Yeah.
This is where I want to help someone understand, to say, when God designed the world, he made sure that when he was commissioning it, when he was giving it to Adam to say, I am done, it is called, I'm done, I've finished with everything. So now whatever man was going to do, whatever was going to happen, everything revolves around the laws. And most Christians have never understood to say these laws are in two categories. You have what you call the natural laws. You also what you call the spiritual laws. The natural laws are natural as they are, meaning any one person can apply them and he can succeed. Like
regardless,
if you read, regardless of whether
Christian
you're a Christian, you are a thief, you are what, those laws are a standard measure by God. One of the laws that I can give you an example is the power of the mind, use of the mind, the power of the mind. It is there in the Bible to say, when it comes to success, if you read from Proverbs chapter 4, verse 23, the Bible says to say, you know, be careful on what you think, because your life is shaped by your thoughts. Yeah. In Proverbs, the Bible says, as you think, so shall you be. That is a natural law to say the natural law of success now is the power of the mind. The power of the mind, yes. So what is it that has been loaded in you from the time you were born? What are the thought patterns? Because if you think poverty, you will become poor. You become poor. Now, if you go to churches, you're going to find that most of these Pentecostal, especially Pentecostal churches, glorify poverty. I have even listened to such songs where someone is singing to say, Nangu tuchure pano pachalo, kumulu tukayanonga. Which like God? Kumulu tukayanonga. Then why are you here on earth? Because by God's design, when God was done with a human being, he said, this is good. I am happy with what I've created. So when God sees a human being, he sees success. Then the other law that many people have never understood is when God created a human being, any living creature, scientifically you go and check, God never placed the future ahead of it. He placed everything. He loaded whatever mansions. If one day you want to own mansions, if one day you want to own vehicles, whatever you need of here on earth was already placed inside. I will give an example of fruits. If you check, maybe if you have a mango, what is inside of mango is a seed. That seed is used for planting. Once you plant that seed, you're going to have a mango tree, and then you're going to have those fruits. And that's exactly the picture of God when God was designing a human being to say, let me put, you know, the seed of success. But you agree with me to say it's not every seed that germinates into a tree. True. It's not every dream that becomes reality. Probably because of the environment where it's placed, where we are found, probably because of certain things that happen in our lives. But by God's creation, when God was commissioning a human being, he said, I have given you everything, Adam and Eve. I am done with you. I have loaded everything. I have blessed you. Even in terms of blessings, we were already blessed from the beginning. I'm done with you. I have blessed you.
So, sir, how do we apply these principles? From what I can understand is that most Christians nowadays, they usually apply the spirituality, and forget or neglect the physicality or the other principle of life. These laws, how can one begin to apply them so that they achieve a balance or they succeed in what they do?
The simple formula is one must balance up. I will give you an example to say you can never become successful by just praying. It can never happen. It can never happen. Because I've heard Christians who normally pray for meal. I've heard Christians who normally pray to say, God, I'm praying for vehicles. Every Sunday I've heard Christians who normally say, receive vehicles, I receive. God does not operate like that. can we understand the scriptures from the beginning? So, you know, when you talk about vehicles, when you talk about all these millennials, it's not. They are not a factor of prayers. Okay. So there are things that are gotten by the natural principles to say you must work. You must use your brain. You must work the hard work way. And God can only give you the ability. Do you understand that? Huh?
Yes.
So God can only give you the wisdom, the ability, you know, the understanding. But the rest is up to you. But many people would bother God for a vehicle, even when you know to say there are no manufacturing plants in heaven.
In heaven, yeah.
So in other words, I want to advise Christians to say, from the time, now I'm saying this to you, Mr. Siatwambo.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying this to you because what I'm telling you are the principles that I have applied. From the time I came to know about this truth, I have never been the same. My principles are based on the Bible, biblical. I read the Bible like no man's business. That's my favorite book. In the night I read, and I apply every principle. So, I want to say most Christians, probably they have never had a deeper understanding of this. And you need to balance, they need to balance in between, you know, physical and also spiritual aspect. You can never say receive a vehicle you receive, a vehicle you have never worked for. Yeah. You know, a vehicle is a product of hard work. It's a product of, you know, hard work. It's a product of proper planning. It's a product of thinking. It's a product of... So all these things are in our hands and not God's hands. So God only enhances our abilities. And if you look at the spiritual side is only there to give security. It's only there to bring these blessings onto your life and not management. When you talk about management, in the words of Miles Munro, I like it because he said it very well to say, it's unto man, the power of management is in a human being. The power of management. And even the Bible, if you read the Bible very well, the Bible says even when God is giving you something, he can only give you what you are able to manage and not what you need. So meaning as human beings, there's more to work about ourselves and not about the blessings that you're working on. So if you are not succeeding in life, you are the reason why you're not succeeding. If you're not making it in life, you are the reason why you're not making it. That's why I know this might injure some people out there to say poverty is a choice.
It's a choice.
And so is success a choice. And it's biblical. Go and read in the book of Deuteronomy where God said, I have given, you know, I've brought before you, you know, success and failure, death and life. But the choice lies within you. So the power is within you. So it's up to you to choose success. It's up to you to choose failure. It's up to you to choose death or life. So the power of choice, God already placed that within us.
Wow. Okay. I think we are learning a lot and the viewers are being inspired out there. So what's your daily routine like? Of course, I read something from a book that said that how a person is able to manage their day is how you are able to see how successful they will be. How's your daily routine like?
Well, I'll start from the time my day begins. My day begins around 02, 03, 01.
Wow.
So that time I have to meditate, that time I have to pray, that time I have to read the Word of God. And that's the time my brain works well. Because I have no distraction. I'll think about the day when I'm done. So I do it in phases. So the first process is normally I get into worship. I'll pray worship just to tune my mind into the spirit. And then from there, I'll read the Word of God at some point. After reading the Word of God, I'll go into worship prayer. And then afterwards now, I'll go into now planning, thinking.
How many hours do you sleep, sir?
I've never slept for more than 5 hours.
Okay.
I've never known what it takes to sleep for more than 5 hours. So the maximum I've slept is 5 hours.
Okay, great.
And every successive person will tell you that. Then in the morning when I wake up now, I would have made a plan. So in other words, what I do, I don't go to bed without a plan. So when I go to bed in the night, of course, I'm dealing with a group of companies. I have my PA, the one who does my programming. So my PA, before she knocks off in the evening, during daytime she'll be gathering all the programs. If I have a talk show somewhere, you know, if I have a TV program somewhere, if I have an interview somewhere, if I'm working somewhere, so I'll give that program to my PA so that in the morning she'll read out now my itinerary to say this is how we are moving today. And the moment I begin my day, I must strictly go by that. And that's why those who have been with me, those who have come to me before, I'll tell them when it's time up, I'll tell them, say it's time up. Why? Because I must connect to the next program.
Yeah.
So I go strict by time. By the end of the day, there's normally a review. I have to report back to the PA, and the PA will have to report to me. If I missed anything, we have to make a follow-up. Okay. So that's how I normally work.
All right. Do you have time to read books? Do you read books? And if you do, who are some of the people that inspire you when you read about them? Obviously, you must have people that you look up to. So being a prominent person, I'm sure there are people who inspired you or inspire you when you read about them.
I do read. I read a lot of books by John Maxwell.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite book, which is the 360 Leader in You. My kind of lifestyle, even in terms of work, is that of leadership and also servant leadership. So I read John Maxwell's books and also Miles Monroe. I've read also quite a number of books on I think quite a number of people, but I'm more into now, I think with the coming in of YouTube now, it helps me a lot. Yeah, because sometimes I don't need to read. I take advantage of the time when I'm driving to, connect my Bluetooth to the system, and I'll be watching a video, I'll be listening to something maybe by Miles Monroe, I'll be listening to something maybe by any one of these speakers, and I rarely listen to music. I rarely watch television. I don't have that time.
You don't watch football?
Football, I don't have that time.
Okay.
I don't have that time.
All right. Okay. So then, like, what challenge or maybe a situation? Can you describe maybe a situation you once found yourself in, and maybe God took you out of it? Maybe it could be a hard time, a tough time you once faced, but you say, this is God. And had it not been God, I wouldn't have been out of this situation.
We have had so many situations. And before I go to that, I want to say every time I've had such, I know that beyond, there's something good coming. Yeah, I think one of the toughest moments ever in my life was the year 2018 and 2017. These were years where I even told my family at some point to say, can we prepare to start all over? Yeah, because that time I remember we were hit from every angle. The system of the government, we have, I think when we are purchasing some of the buildings, we got some loans. Those loans went into arrears, the businesses were going down like this. So everything was just the other way around. And I'd reached a point where even my brain just came to a halt. Have you ever been in a situation where you just stop thinking? Stop thinking. And you wake up in the morning, you just say, I'll be sleeping.
You don't want to wake up. You don't want to do anything.
Have you been in a situation where you are just, you are not even blinking and so on? Even if somebody passes a hand here, you can't even see. Blink. Yeah, the years 2017 and 2018, part of 2018, those were my toughest years. And I remember, the loans, some of the loans that we had acquired from 2 banks, yes. They went into serious arrears to a point of, you write demand letter, you respond demand letter, until the final demand letters. Then we had all this, then business was steeply going like this. You pray, nothing is happening. God, what is happening, and so on. And I reached a point where I remember one day when I went to the office, I'm coming out of my vehicle, then there's a vehicle that just drove in. So these people just say, no, we are lucky you found you, brought this letter. And that was the final demand letter. And this final demand letter simply means, when you acquire loans, meaning properties attached to these loans.
Wow.
I looked at that letter, went into the office, told my administrator. When I told my administrator to have this letter, I just said, no, I have 1 or 2 or 3 other letters, the demand letters. And before then, I walk out, and then from there, another bank. Within the same period of time, another bank came. Oh, we have this. Wow. That was unusual. And immediately what I did was to get onto my vehicle. I left the letters on the table. I went into my vehicle and I went to the mountain, Chisamba area. That's where I normally like going. So I went to Chisamba and I started praying. And I remember I prayed up to about 16 hours. And when I was done with praying, for the first time I rode, I was wearing a suit. I was rolling, rolling in a suit. And by the time I was coming down from the mountain around 16 hours, I had a peace of mind. So I just told my mind, I told myself to say, whatever happens, God, you're in control. So now, a week passed, 1 week down the line. And again, the way things happened again, that's when I discovered to say it was God. Almost within a spurt of 1 week, the other bank came back. Oh, there's this thing you haven't responded. What can we do for you?
Yeah.
We sat down, we discussed, and whatever we discussed, that's what they did. Within the other day, the following day, again, another bank. Again, all these institutions came together. And then I just stood and then I laughed. I said, God, you wanted to scare me?
It was quite a scare.
Quite a scare. But later on, what started happening from, I think those who know very well, from 2018 to date, things that started happening.
Miracles.
Miracles after miracles, one after the other.
Wow.
And we have never gotten back.
Wow.
So it was just one way of God trying to prepare me emotionally, trying to prepare me mentally, trying to prepare me because, when you talk about wealth creation, the status of your success depends on your mental power. It depends on your emotional development. It depends on your level of perseverance and all this. And that's what God relies on. So when God wants to lift a human being, he would first start working on these elements. And as you grow, you attract a certain level of success. So that's just one of those moments, but I've had quite a number of them. But I want to say God has built me to a level where now I'm no longer afraid of anything. Wow. I think fear has gone. I'm no longer afraid. Someone can bring this, someone can do this. Nothing. I'm no longer scared of anything because what I went through, that has
shaped you.
Wow.
Okay. Lastly, Dr. Rozious, I'm sure someone is being blessed out there. Lastly, what would you say to an entrepreneur that wants to give up? Maybe they've been trying this, they've been trying that, and they try this, they try that. It's not working out, and they're at the point of giving up. What words can you have for that person?
I just want to encourage someone out there to say, making it as an entrepreneur is a process. And this process, it takes so many years. I think you're my brother, the story very well. To say much of my early childhood life up to somewhere when I was about 38 years. I've spent it struggling. I've tried out so many businesses that never succeeded. I normally call these years having been spent in the wilderness, where in the wilderness nothing is working out. And from 38 years up to now when I'm 46, a lot has happened. Why? Because the first part of my life was, I allowed the due process of life to work within me. And this is what many people should understand, those that are into entrepreneurship, because most of them have got wrong notions about this entrepreneurship. Their focus is normally on making money. When you invest money in a business, their focus is, let me make profit, and if they don't make profit, then they get discouraged, and then they jump onto another business, and others have ended up giving up. Now, I want to say the process of becoming an entrepreneurship is that of ups and downs. In your initial stages, there'll be, roadblocks, there'll be, challenges and so on. Those challenges are there to build your emotions. They are there to build your level, your mental ability and so on. Because, I'll give you an example of, the businesses that I'm running now, which are quite many. With a fleet of staff and, all these things and so on. If one is not strong, if I was not built for that, probably by now, you'd have just heard to say, he has got BP, by now you'd have heard to say, he's got stroke and so on. But I'm a very strong person, and probably stronger than some that are falling and so on.
Yeah.
I'm not a hypertensive, patient and so on. Why? Because I was built for that, and no matter how much I may have, whatever, because business has pressure, not pressure, not the pressure that people are talking about. Business has pressure, and those of us who are in business, that's why I normally say business teabana. It has got pressure. And sometimes the way pressure comes in, it's one after the other, one after the other. So that's why I want to urge all those that are into entrepreneurship to say, can you give yourself to this due process, which takes so many years? Forget about the luxuries. First of all, deal with yourself, because you are the reason you are not in business. You are the reason you cannot make it. Those people tell you to say, no, it's because I don't have capital. Are you sure? It's not about capital, but it is because of you. You have had capital before. Why did your business, sink? Is it the business? No. Is it the capital? No. It is because of you. Any other person, probably another person, has succeeded in the same business. But you're saying, oh, I'm failing because of what? Because of capital. So it's not because of capital. Otherwise, this is what I wanted to encourage others to say, I'm a fellow Zambian, I'm a fellow Zambian. If I'm able to make it, it simply means you can also make it. If
he can make it, you can also make it. He's got 2 hands, he's got 2 legs, he's got 2 eyes, 2 ears. Someone out there who's discouraged, I hope you've learned something from this. Someone out there who might be thinking of giving up because you've been trying things are not working out, God is still on your side. Finally, before we wrap up the program, we normally have a surprise quiz. So we're going to ask you about 5 questions from the Bible just to test your Bible knowledge. And I hope you get 5 out of 5. I hope my brother won't let me down, won't embarrass me. I've already marked 5 out of 5. Question number 1, are you ready?
I might be ready. It's a surprise indeed.
Are you ready for the Bible quiz? Question number 1. Who was the first king of Israel? King Saul. Okay, correct. I think that one was easy. What do you think, directors? It was too easy. Okay, here comes the hard one. All right. Adam and Eve had Cain and Abel. Who was the third one? Apart from Cain and Abel, who was the third? Who was the third son?
Third one. The third son was anyway. This one, let me just say.
Pass.
0 to 1.
Okay, I knew that this one
great.
to be 10-0. Okay, his name was Seth. Okay. So we had. Okay, there are two people in the Bible who were taken by God. They did not see death. Mention these 2 guys who were taken by God. These guys, they did it. Okay, it's easy. This one sounded a bit easy. Okay,
Number 4.
All right. Okay. This one will be a true or false. The Bible is the most selling book. It's the book that has sold most. True or false?
True.
Okay, correct. Okay, he got that one correct. Okay, when Moses killed a person in Egypt, he ran away and stayed in the wild, and he stayed with a certain priest. What was the name of that priest that Moses lived with? Because he later married the daughter of that priest. Okay, correct. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother got 4 out of 5, which is not bad. He has impressed. Okay, we've come to the end of the show finally. Thank you for joining us on this show. It has been a fun show. I hope you've learned something. Hope you keep it Jesus. Thank you on behalf of my crew, and thank you to Dr. Rozious for according us this opportunity. It's not easy, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Behalf of my crew again, thank you, and see you on the next episode. Peace.
The other